Okay, and again, if there's anything that you need, just go ahead and let me know. I'll just stay on here, but I'll be muted.
Thank you.
No problem.
Welcome, everybody. If you're just joining, we're going to start. I'd like to begin with a brief introduction, and that's to tell you a little bit about myself, what I do, and my interests. My name is Ewuoso. I'm an instructor here at Oakton Community College. I also tutor. I tutor English composition. As to what I'm interested in, I'm interested in social media, technical writing, arguments, and writing pedagogy. As for my hobbies, I love to jog. I love volleyball, playing volleyball, hiking, and soccer. If you are curious to know more about me, I have a sway, which you can take a look at this. The link is posted below. I would also be posting some information in the chart when the time is appropriate, specifically regarding evaluation, and when I get into the activities. I want to talk about a few things as we cover this presentation. The presentation is on Snapchat, but we are going to be looking at learning management systems and discussion board forums, because this intersects with the topic I'm going to cover today, which is Snapchat and how this can enhance group collaborations. But to do this, I need to clarify a few things that I'm going to be talking about and things I will not be talking about. I think it's important to set the scope of this presentation in order to avoid confusion, but also to encourage participants to try to understand where I'm coming from. I would mention in particular that I have surveyed students for this presentation, and I'm indebted to my students. As a matter of fact, this presentation was inspired from something that happened in fall 2020. This was during the height of the pandemic. I had a student who wanted me to mediate between her and another student who, according to her, had not invited her to join the group's Snapchat group that was formed in relation to an assignment group project. And the students wanted me to intervene, and I was like, why should I be involved in such disputes or misunderstanding, if you will call it? But I got involved. I settled the misunderstanding, and to cut a long story short, I'm still in touch with these students, and they really helped me with this presentation. My goal in this presentation is to argue that when it comes to promoting student engagement, connectedness, and community, especially in online courses, asynchronous online courses, learning management systems which make use of online discussion forums, supporting students' use of social software, also known as social media, specifically Snapchat's featured group chat, can really help students enhance communication, collaboration, and connectedness. So as we consider this week's orientation, especially theme, I want us to reflect on this quote, which I had captured from an article in the Chronicles of Higher Education. And it came from Martin Shapiro. I have highlighted in bold the specific area that I want to focus on, just interests of students. And according to Martin Shapiro, they change over time. I, as an instructor, I try not to teach the same course the same way twice. So I always make changes and based on students' interests that I see and based on students' feedback. But as we consider this, I have an activity that I'm going to take us through because as Shapiro mentioned here, to teach the same thing over and over again throughout a career would drive any of us crazy. And so without further ado, here is the activity that I have. So to complete this activity, here's what I want you guys to do. There is a QR code for this, and there is a link for this. So basically, if you're joining us online, you can use your QR code to capture this. Or if you do not want to use your QR code, you can use the link below, and that would help you. Let's see if I can post this link. So let's take a minute to do this, and then I will get in touch with you guys after a minute. I'm going to post something on the chat forum. Bear with me. Oh, the QR code doesn't work. My bad. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I thought I tested it and it works, but this is the link. Good thing I had a backup plan. So let's try the QR code. And I'm going to connect back again. So for those of us just joining, I'm going to post more on the. Okay, so hope you guys can see that. Are we all done? You can send, I could see the chat message, and I would just preview the results. I should mention that you can complete the first activity and submit, or complete the second activity, which is kind of related. They're all on the same form. I'm going to have a look at the results just to see. Uh-oh. Wants me to sign in. Okay. Looks like because of time, I'm going to continue. But if anyone wants to share what they put on the form, I'm more than willing to listen. You can post, it's supposed to be one. Okay. So let's continue with the presentation. In the interest of time, anyone wants to share? What do you consider normal? And what do you consider a new normal when it comes to your workspace in the classroom today? You can use the chart option.
I think that a old normal in my classroom anyway would be that students would converse and collaborate more amongst themselves during work time. And I think now. They do that a lot less. Maybe that's because of masking and everything. But I find that they kind of have less conversations between themselves, which I find a little bit concerning, because I think those conversations really help students to develop like their understanding of the concepts we're working on better, just because they're kind of explaining it to each other or talking about their approaches or something like that. So that was an old normal from my classroom.
I
Should I
see.
share the new one I've noticed as well?
Sure.
Okay. I think that students are a lot better at utilizing online research methods,
Hmm.
just because they've had a lot more practice and maybe more focused time to do so. So that was the new thing I've really noticed in my classroom space.
Yeah. So in terms of in person, they're reluctant. You say they're more eager to have conversations, but when it's online, you don't see much interaction among them. Is that correct? Or is it?
I
or
think
is-
it's kind of like it used to be a lot more just online, had less interaction,
Hmm,
but I think kind of in person has a little bit less too. That's just what I've noticed from my classroom though.
sure. So according to some comments, thank you, Anne. According to so here's what someone said. That's tests. Yes, we lose the important side conversations on break. 2, lack of bonding within classroom community. So I have quite a different experience. Maybe not so different, but I think some of you may resonate with this. So when I resumed in-person class, I noticed my students were eager to talk to each other. They were just like asked about everything amongst them, about themselves, like, how are you? How was your break? What did you do for the summer? Where did you go? It was very, 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 it was very jovial and friendly. These are things that they can't do online. So I noticed that this is what I think is missing or lacking. I mean, this is largely due to the pandemic because we have to move classes online. And then, well, let me share with you the again, we can skip the QR the link here, but because I'm not able to access it at the moment. But I do want to share something I'd gotten this from Morton Shapiro's article. This is my attempt to extract basic information. Some of this, I believe some of the conclusions of Morton Shapiro are based on a generalization. I don't think there's a universal agreement on the way classes ran during the pandemic and after the pandemic or before the pandemic. But here's what I was able to extract from the article. So according to Shapiro, we were less dependent on technology, and now during the pandemic, we are more dependent. In-person and unrecorded lectures, and the new normal is like we have online classes, synchronous and asynchronous classes, and they're recorded lectures. One point that Shapiro mentioned is that professors are used to just doing routine activities, and just grade. They don't have so much touch, so much outreach, a connection with your students. But the new normal makes professors have become more or less very compassionate and understanding. We now have flexible deadlines instead of rigid deadlines before, and then you have in-person and then virtual office hours. So one takeaway from this is that there's been some changes, and because of the new normal, because of the pandemic. I want to talk about the perspectives on learning management systems, because this was something I had to explore in order to talk about Snapchat. But for this activity, you don't have to go on the link or the QR code. Somebody mentioned the QR code is not working. I thought it was working the last time, so I apologize. I don't know what happened. But let's skip the QR code, because what I basically just have in the form is just for me to be able to check the live response, so I could just tell positions. But we can just use a one word, and we can use the chat function, chat button, and to just, in one word, how would you describe your perspective on learning management systems? And I haven't defined it yet, but just to give you guys a clue, if you can think of for those of us who may struggle understanding learning management, if you can think of D2L, that's which we use at Oakland, that's a learning management system. Blackboard is a learning management system. So in one word, please describe your perspective on learning management systems. You can use the chat function, the button, to tell us your answer, your response. Okay, so we got comprehensive. Thanks, Anne. Anyone else wants to share? Just one word to describe your perspective on learning management systems. Varied. Thank you, Dave. I've got another. Oh, tested, helpful, higher up. Okay, that's great. Anyone else? Okay, let me move on. So I got another creative. Thank you, son. I agree. Okay, let's. So I had passed out a survey to students, and I surveyed 24 students, and just to solicit their feedback. And the question I asked them in the survey is this: briefly recall an experience, positive or negative, using a discussion forum on Blackboard, D2O, or any other learning management system in a college class. So I created a word cloud out of their responses. And as you can, because I kept the question so open, either positive or negative, some students shared positive experiences and some students shared negative experiences. No surprise. So based on the word cloud, I had unengaging. Some think it was just for feedback. Some praise the peer engagement feature of D2L or Blackboard. Some praise the function that you can the fact that you can contact other classmates. And some said that discussion board forums encourage deep thinking, deep discussion, because students have more time to reflect. Rather than in class, you just utter something you don't necessarily have to give it a serious thought, but if not saying that that's how it happens all the time, but students have more time and space to plan their responsive. Some say, well, it's useful because they can track their grades. Another said it's educational. Another student said skill dependent. So not all professors, not all instructors are prepared to design learning management system in a way that can be very engaging. So I got a lot of interesting responses, and I will share. And you guys, I hope you guys can. I posted something on I'm going to post it again in the chat. The results of this survey, so where you can access the detailed survey results. Some said it was difficult. There are glitches on it. When they log into D2L or Blackboard, it crashes and they lose all their work that they're working on. Okay, we got somebody else joining us. Welcome. To talk about learning management system, here's a quote from Alfred P. Rovai. This is in 2002, but I want to emphasize this because he said this. I'm going to focus on the last sentence in this paragraph chunk. If a strong sense of community is related to increased persistence as well as to increased learning, then a sense of community becomes a foundation upon which to design and facilitate online instruction. In this article, I want to stress that Rovai here is saying something that I think most is probably on our minds, that by building a sense of community among students using learning management systems or in an online class, we can encourage persistence. I can argue that this may be some sort of antidote against dropouts and encourage students to persist in a course because they have the support needed for them. They have other students, but this is a point that I find very interesting. So Rovai says this, but what exactly is the definition of a learning management system? I came across various definitions. The first definition, which I got from Pat Swainson and Nancy Taylor, these are English, they have a background in English composition, goes like this: software application to which an educational institution has been granted a license to enable it implement courses to be taught online. Or what courses? It's not very clear to me that this is a working definition that I think is clear and understanding, especially for the purpose of this presentation. But I'm going to skip over to the third definition, which was very helpful, and I found in a book called Teaching Online, A Practical Guide. This was written by Susan Cole and Steve Rosen. And so the definition, I think, is very comprehensive, and I think it captures what we instructors are interested in, pretty much our understanding of LMS system, specifically one such as D2L, a software program that contains a number of integrated instructional functions. Instructors can post lectures, graphics, moderate discussions, invoke chat sessions, post video commentary, and give quizzes, all within the confines of the same software system. I want to hop on to the last tail end of this sentence, all within the confines of the same software system. And the question I have as I think about this is, which I think is raised by LMS, is this: if learning is confined to one system, then it's not totally inclusive of other systems. Well, scratch that. Maybe if we can make it more inclusive for other systems, maybe it'll be great for students. Blackboard, D2L, and as I'm going to go over this, you will see this. We have a variety of learning management systems. They are constantly being reinvented. They are constantly being updated. They are to be made more attractive, made more engaging. We have tools on learning management systems that you would see on social media. So with the thumbs up, with the likes, with the views, with the number of people who have read this, these are all features we see on like Facebook or Twitter. So these are features that inspired by. So they're getting more creative. But the question is this going to make students more engaged? Perhaps even build more collaboration, make it make it feel like it's social media, and there are questions that we can raise, and I think we will see some conclusions from research, and I don't, without letting the cat out of the bag yet, I do want to talk about discussion board forum as it's defined. This is how Drone and Addison 2014 defines discussion forums. There are some benefits, of course, in using discussion forums, and I've highlighted this. This is not a exhaustive list, but one thing I would hop on is that they act as repository spaces for prior questions and answers in the course, and students can get a lot of information from the discussion forum to looking at their peers or their classmates' work. They have time to engage to other posts, to reflect. There's no, you don't have, again, it depends, you don't have a specific restriction on how students can carry the discussion. And one thing, it's very individual. Students can, everybody gets to say something in a classroom. Not everybody gets to say something, because on the discussion forum, if you're grading students, you're going to grade everybody for their contribution. There's some advantages, but I also think there are some challenges as well. And some of the challenges that I highlighted here came from my experience, but also from students discussing with them. Some students do not like the function of post first, which I use a lot, because they feel like they need to see other students respond in order to formulate their own position. I once had an ESL student last semester, 2 semesters ago, actually last semester, who was not quite comfortable with the post first, because she wanted to see how the native writers had written their posts. But I told her to stop worrying about other people, that she should focus on herself. But she did well in the class, because she was insecure about how her response was different from others, and sometimes she misunderstood the thesis. She couldn't figure out the conclusion or the main idea, and I told her it's just part of the process. But not all students find the idea of a discussion board forum as a place where they can freely express themselves and I'm going to hop on a problem that I've seen with discussion board forum, because students may want to engage each other, but they're wary about the authority figure who is looking at everything they're saying. So the question is, are they just doing this just to get a grade, or they're doing it just because they want to, because they love to do it, they love to interact, or it's just a mere routine where they just respond to questions on discussion board forums? The other challenges as well, which I've highlighted here, I think I've seen this in my discussion forums in my class. Sometimes one student says one thing on a discussion forum, and everybody else repeats and regurgitates what that one student has said. So in talking about discussion forums, we also have to be mindful of collaboration tools and writing. So in this presentation, it's focused on Snapchat, but also covering learning management system and discussion forums. So if you're just joining us, just a quick recap. So learning management systems are those spaces that we organize our lectures, materials, and students view feedback and grades. They can participate in a discussion forum, and we're able to assess how they're doing in the class. And on the basis of on the basis of this, we can give student feedback. But they're also collaborative tools when it comes to learning management systems. And one thing I'll talk about is that the students, when we give them work to do, they're not just using, they're using different collaborative tools, not just one collaborative tools. So even though I've highlighted that there are communication tools, there are Google Charts, Google Slides, or email discussion board forum, students rarely use just one collaborative tool, but they use multiples of these tools. So I think it's important to highlight that. It's also important to talk about group collaboration tools, specifically the ones for co-creation, ideation, for project presentations. Our students are aware of this. So the question that and I think this is a major part of this presentation, is how do all these tools contribute towards online learning, community, and connectedness? Well, here's Rovi again, and here's key quotes that I thought I should put on this slide that I think captures why we seek to foster a sense of community among students, especially when we give them group assignments. So asynchronous online learners who develop a stronger sense of belonging and connectedness feel less isolated and have greater satisfaction with their academic programs. And here's Murphy, Mahoney, Chain, Mendoza, and Yang, 2005. A collaborative learning environment helps students learn more actively and effectively better than one that is not. So here's another one from Wesley, 2006. Students who participate in collaborative learning and educational activities outside the classroom and who interact more with faculty members get better grades, are more satisfied with their education, are more likely to remain in college. So this is about persistency again. But this leads me to another topic, but which is when it comes to the students we have in that classroom. Here's a key quote from Dana Schweiger and Christine Landwick, 2018. You guys have seen this, Bitmojis. These are common to anyone who's gone on Snapchat. But one thing that Schweiger and Christine Landwick mentioned is that this desire for personalized experiences, preference for online and personalized experiences, is something that is not saying that it's just Gen Zs, but they notice that Gen Zs tend to desire more personalized micro experiences. According to stats, according to Pew Research 2018 reports, 57% of 18 to 21-year-olds were in college, compared with 52% for millennials, and we have 43% for Gen Zers. For Gen X at similar ages. They are the majority. Gen Zs or Gen Zers are the majority in most composition classes in college, in a 2-year or 4-year college. So here's another from John Braun and Terry Anderson. So when it comes to understanding social software, by social software, they're using it in a very technical, they mean social media, social software support for social forms. So according to these two scholars, they classified understanding social forms using 3 categories. You have the group-oriented system, network-oriented system, and the set-oriented system. So the group, it's more about membership, role-based permission. Network, you have the features of friending, liking, commenting, and set tends to provide tools like topic-based location selection tags. So when it comes to social support for forms, we are going to see later that social media tends to have this very high network-oriented system and set-oriented system. What about learning management system that is playing catch up with social media? Like you having all these features of likes, you having all these features of how many people have read this or gets a thumbs up. You know, so let's take a look at this. So this here's I got this from the book. So when it comes to net, set, LMS, Blackboard, they're very high when it comes to group. If I remind you of the definition of that again. So when you have group, it's based on membership. Net is based on, as they put it, you have this net is based on friending, linking, and commenting, and then set is based on topic and location. So LMS systems are very poor when it comes to set and net, but very high when it comes to group. Okay, so we remember these two, net and set. Just remember that for learning management systems, thumbs down. Okay, so I guess we have social media to the rescue. This is 2014, and things have changed since 2014. We now have Snapchat, we have TikTok, and the other social media platforms now. So this does not capture Snapchat, but based on my research, and I will argue that Snapchat has a very high net and a very high set. So this is Facebook and the set. So Twitter doesn't have, like, it's 2014, but things may have changed about it. I didn't look into that, but I want to focus on social media, and in particular, I'm going to talk about how this connects to a broader view about those who engage in social media. I'm talking about a lot of Gen Zs who tend to use social media a lot. So according to stats, we know that there is today. Here's what they said: it's possible to learn not only from individuals but also from their collective interactions. So when I had this encounter with my students who had asked me to interfere or to mediate between her and another student when the other student would not add her to the group Snapchat group chat, it was very informative, because many of the students I had, this was in fall 2020, they were very engaged in Snapchat. They used it a lot and they liked it. They told me a lot about it. When I approached them for research, they were willing to discuss with me their experiences in using this and how it really works for them to collaborate. Now I think differently because I'm a millennial, and when I was in college, Facebook. I'm sorry, MySpace was dying and Facebook was just ascendant. But now, as I teach, Facebook is not something that a lot of Gen Zers use. Many of them are either going to Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok. But so we can learn from their collective behavior. And when you speak to students, I've learned a lot from what you're interested in. So how does this compare to Snapchat? Well, if you look at the one on the left, this is geolocation. You have got the chat, and you've got this is a camera feature where you can take pictures, snap photos, snap videos. And then you look at the next one with a friend. This is stories. And then you have Snap Discover. So, well, I would argue, as I've mentioned, that Snapchat especially is high on net and high on set. So just a few information for those of us who may be interested. Snapchat has a mission statement, and the camera is video and photos. The disappearing feature to me stands out as that no other social media platform compares with Snapchat. It's the most popular social media platform among teenagers as of 2020. This is from Statista. A few other stats that I will provide is that in the year 2020, the year of the pandemic, 36% said Snapchat was their favorite, 30% said it was Instagram, and Facebook, 4% said it was their favorite. Now, I should mention that Snapchat is facing a lot of competition from TikTok. They're having a hard time attracting adults. Snapchat is especially older adults, so it's more for the younger folks. So is it the new normal for college students? Well, you talk to your students. So once it happened in the class, because I've been researching this for some time. I had a presentation on this with the South Atlantic Modern Language Association. And I know based on research that a lot of students are using Snapchat. I told my students at Oakton, I said, many of you here are probably on Snapchat or using Snapchat, and they nodded and said yes. So it wasn't, and I didn't want to just say you're using Snapchat because I could be mistaken. There could be some not using, but many of them concurred that yes, we use Snapchat. And so I've always asked myself, what are they doing? Well, from other stats I was able to gather, the average user spends 30 minutes on the app, that is on Snapchat. So the average Snapchat user spends 30 times a day on Snapchat. Now we have a lot of females who use Snapchat. 61% of females use Snapchat, and based on that, we know that 39% of males use Snapchat. If you're interested about how it works, I posted the link on the forum. I could also share this presentation with you. I don't want to go over this because that takes more time. What about motivation and social media platform usage? Well, according to Ahabas S and Ma M, social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat have this is the category that these researchers use to rank the motivation for social media usage. And we know for Snapchat, entertainment and convenience. But when I spoke to my students, when I surveyed them, to me, they emphasize the convenience of communicating with it. I'm sure they're doing other things that are entertaining, but they don't talk about that. But they talk about the convenience of using this to communicate with each other. And I've had this more, especially my online students, they say that this really works when it comes to collaboration. And I have stories to tell about how students collaborate and how things go wrong on Snapchat, but that's for another time. So here is one part. So one of the survey questions that I asked students and the results. Again, this for those who are just joining, who may have missed some part of this presentation, we were a total of 24 students, and I surveyed them. And when I asked them, say, if you were to collaborate on a college project with a classmate, which of these social media platforms do you think is going to be the most convenient? You will notice that I didn't put email there because I know that students don't like emailing. They don't respond to my emails. When I call them, they respond to that usually. But anyway, so you can tell. So we have 62.5% said Snapchat. And the second is Instagram. Not surprising because research says that it's Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok, but I don't know how you collaborate. I can understand how you can collaborate using WhatsApp because you can share files and share images. Snapchat somewhat, but many of them said Snapchat will work for them. And there are other responses as well. If you're interested in a detailed survey, I will share that with you. Now, every social media platform has gone through changes and they keep reinventing themselves or becoming more to make themselves more attractive to students, or to Gen Zs and users. But one thing we know that Snapchat continues to, as I've mentioned, continues to accumulate more users, and it's mostly attracting young folks, not older folks. Unlike Facebook is still number one. Snapchat hasn't made any revenue. It's just posting losses over the past since its debut. It hasn't really made any money. But one thing to know that it's still growing, and it's made changes over time, as you can see in this timeline. What about Snapchat and social forums? As I've already argued that, yeah, Snapchat, because of the functions and features it has, it's very high on net and set. And you can understand why students would like this so much when it comes to connecting with each other. A feature that learning management systems do not have is that they're low on net and low on set. Again, if you're just joining us, you're wondering, what's this? What does it mean by net and set? So net-oriented systems tend to provide features like friending, linking, and commenting, and set tends to provide topics that are based on location-based selection tags or categories. So when students can look at each other where they are, they can post videos and other cool things amongst themselves. I don't get involved in that stuff. I just know they're doing this because it's entertaining and it's convenient and it's fun for them. But how about Snapchat group chat? Because that's also related to this topic and how students are finding this. I'm not going to go into this, but if you're interested in how this works and how students, what your students are probably seeing in their group chat, you can watch this video or capture this link. Here is something I want to highlight because why students would move from a discussion board forum and all the way to Snapchat on their phone. During my time when I was a college student, it's more than 10, 14 years ago, pretty much when we had to collaborate, we just exchange phone numbers and we call each other. And then we meet at a place and, and then we just talk over the work. But these students, at least from my experience, my students, so usually when I give a group assignment, it'll be on D2 or Blackboard, depending on and then on the discussion forum, which I'll create for my group assignments for the students, I will post, I'll categorize every student has a group. And then I'll say they should use it to communicate with each other. Students don't really use it to communicate. All they use it to communicate is to post their information, their email, or their phone numbers. So what I noticed is that typically they'll go from exchanging emails and likely phone numbers, usually either one of those two, and to call each other, a phone number, because you need a phone in order to text. So once they have their phone numbers, they're able to text each other, which was why this other student was able to use Snapchat to try to locate the other students, because without a phone, you cannot text. And without exchanging messages, you cannot find out the other peer's Snapchat username. So once they get into the app, then they are able to find their group and then connect on the Snapchat group chart. So here's what it looks like. You can see once, again, for those of us who are not too familiar with this, once students receive the message and once it's opened, once it gets there, you see delivered. And if it's opened, you see this message that says opened. If you don't see it's open, you can tell the student probably did not read it. This is slightly off topic, but when you send somebody a picture or video, they only get a chance to see it for a few seconds or and then it depends on depending on the setting, it disappears. I have a problem with that since I like to record information, and especially in the writing class, I don't want students to just lose track of the communication. So I've had issues with that, in class when students use Snapchat and they say, oh, you know what, I asked somebody to do this and the person didn't do it. Well, how can you prove that to me when it's disappeared? Okay, so here's one student's perspective. And I think this is why I would argue, or should I say, I think it's a fair criticism of discussion board forums and learning management system. We instructors have a lot of authority. Maybe it's a stretch to say that it's that of Big Brother in an Orwellian sense, but we do have authority when we access student records and learning management system. Students are aware when they're engaging in conversations on discussion board forums, that we can see what they're saying, and they can just toe the line and just do what we ask them to do and focus on the assignment instructions, focus on the requirement of the discussion post, and not engage in friendly overtures or discussions of how are you doing, how was they just go straight to the point. And but here's a strong statement that a student wrote. I thought I should share this because to me, it also highlights something that, you know, when students do not feel comfortable expressing themselves, if they know that somebody, an authority figure is around, maybe this may be good and this may be, but if students have a choice, they would not use this to communicate, especially when it comes to a group project. That's one takeaway from this particular slide. Now, from what I learned from the students, and I wanted to just make a just to conclude this, because I want to permit time for Q&A. Learning management systems and social media platform tools. Students have multiple choices, multiple options. But I think learning management systems should be used as transit points for students to foster collaboration. Once I thought that you can just make them collaborate perfectly on learning management system, but students have shown me again, and they're not very comfortable like trying to collaborate or expressing themselves. They would just be very, either monosyllabic responses are good, or just so I think in order to foster collaboration, especially in online spaces, especially in asynchronous courses, we need to give students more opportunities. So I would tell them that it's okay for them to use Snapchat. So choose their preferred collaboration tools, because they don't use just one, they use multiple. And Snapchat is one of those tools that they will use. And if there are lessons that I've obtained from this new normal, one of them would be that if given the choice between LMS discussion forums and a social media app to collaborate for an assignment project, Snapchat is likely going to be the preferred collaboration tool among students. Just as you saw in that survey supports, I'm still seeking more, doing more research, especially for Gen Z students. They would go with Snapchat. And on that note, I wanted to ask if there are feedback, comments, thoughts, questions, concerns. Anyone has anything to share? You can use the chat. I'll just unmute yourself. And David?
Thank you.
Oh, sure. I can hear you. Go ahead. Any thoughts? I have questions for you guys. If no one has, I just thought about it. So this.
I was gonna ask.
Sure, I'm
I
listening.
keep talking over you. I'm so sorry. I was just gonna ask if you could give an example of an assignment that you used with Snapchat that was successful.
So I want to make it clear that I do not develop assignments on Snapchat and say they should use it, but I encourage them to use it, because I think it's great that you ask the questions, because I'm a millennial in my mid-30s. And when I was in college, we did not use social media to collaborate to do assignments. But I noticed that among my students that they love to use, especially my online asynchronous course, they love to use. Some of them come to me that I know they're using Snapchat to collaborate. So in one group project that I assigned, and I've assigned group project on social media, but not necessarily always social media, I would ask them to exchange contacts. But now it's like they're not exchanging phone numbers, they're exchanging usernames on Snapchat. So this is quite different from when I was in college. We wouldn't do that. Many of my peers, at least at that time, would not do that. So in terms of creating an assignment, it's not something I feel comfortable doing, because I don't know how that's going to look like. I think it depends on where they are, because I've had a student who was based in India, and she was joining students, and the time difference is like, I think 7 or 8 hours, I don't remember, but she was connecting with her peers on Snapchat. And I told them they could use it. Maybe some students do not even know they could use it, but other students would just naturally gravitate towards that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do have some questions for. Okay, let me look at the. Yes, so tests. That's what I. Collaborative tool for groups. So I try to promote it, ask them that they could use it. But I'm working on a manuscript, and some of the quote unquote advice, or should I say suggestion, rather, is that when I tell them, because I don't want them, students use multiple collaboration tools, not just Snapchat. I try to encourage them that it should, when it comes to recording information about who's going to do what and who's going to do that, they should not just rely on Snapchat, because again, you have this disappearing feature of like photos and text and videos. How are you going to document to me that somebody, you asked somebody to do this and the person did not do it because there's no proof, you know? Okay, I thought you might be replacing discussion board for Snapchat, but I didn't understand how that could work if posts are temporal. So it's, yeah, that's interesting. How can you save doc image you need? Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism of students who are relying on Snapchat. Screenshot is good. Yeah, but I want to say something in defense of students' use of Snapchat, because I think we academics may say, yeah, you can. I think it's a legitimate concern because you can't save posts, you can't save images, it will disappear. And again, it depends on how long you want it to be visible. But I want to emphasize the collaborative nature of it and the fact that they can communicate with each other. Not so much about them preserving information. It's more about just, you know, I could go into more details about how loneliness has increased for especially Gen Zs. You know, there's this the desire to connect with other students that is largely missing because of the pandemic. I think this is just social. They can connect with each other and feel like they belong to a community. So I want us to think in terms of that. It's not just, yeah, these are valid criticism. Like if you're not using discussion board forum, how can you track conversations? How could you track responsibilities or duties or responses of other students? Like D2O, we know, especially discussion board forums, they act as repository of prior information. Snapchat is not good at that. I mean, you want to see what other students be saying, thread, no, it's going to disappear. Again, it's a fair criticism, but my focus on is this is more like collaboration and connectedness, which can hopefully promote persistence. So I got questions for those of you who have a background, adult learners, ESL and other learners. What possible, I need to head out early? Sure. Okay, so thank you, Anne. Thank you for your comment. David, you have a question? Raise your hand.
Yeah, just a couple comments, comment, and I just kind of going down the same path as this seminar.
Yeah.
First off, it's been a while since I've been in college, but I think some of my most memorable experiences have been the group work that I've done and the exchanges or debates that we had about topics. You know, I think that's what makes, you know, the lessons, you know, real, I think. So I think it's important for us to try to do that in our classes in the current day and age. So some things that I've tried that had some success in my discussion boards, I gave students the option of writing their response, posting an audio, or posting a video of their reply.
I see.
And then one thing I'm flirting with this moving forward is maybe having team posts to discussion boards. So maybe having a small team discuss what they're going to say and then post that to the discussion board and having them collaborate on what they're going to say to the the subsequent posts that go on to the discussion board.
I see. That's cool. So I think the fact that you mentioned multiple options, like we know that many Gen Zs, especially 18 to 21, they're very they're not monochrome. They love multicolor and you know, the multimodal text format, video, audio, having those features, I think really goes a long way to support students. Especially, we know they love to take pictures and do a lot of videos. So I think that's something that I'm open to. But since I'm a writing instructor, I try to balance this. I'm asking myself, how does this connect with writing? If I'm teaching writing, I want them to focus on the rudiments of writing. I want to, you know, look at those structures, how they're writing. So, but video, it's a little bit, but I understand how this. I think for me, I would probably just focus on that when it comes to introduction, because that's just, you just get an easy 5 points or 10 points. But when it comes to essay and other things, it's something I have to think about. Yeah. So
I'm teaching a business class, and
I see.
Sometimes a picture can demonstrate a concept that they're trying to
Sure. That's a good
walking
point.
through it. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier to do than describing it in words. So I'm trying to give them various ways of expressing themselves.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good. So I do, and I know we just have a few minutes remaining, but here's some of the sources I looked at, these books. Some of them are dated, but they're useful information, practical advice and suggestions and teaching online. This is just walking guys through some of the survey. I can post this later. I contacted students from Oakton College, Harper College, some from NIU, UIC, so various, just any young folks that I know. So some of their responses, this was, I could share this. I know our time is almost up, but I do want to go over my sources. If you're interested, you can reach out to me via email. I'm happy to share this with anyone. I don't have anything else to say, but I think we have some. Okay, thank you all for joining. Any questions, thoughts, comments? I'm gonna stop sharing at this point. Thank you all for participating, and I wish you all the best this semester and in your activities, interests, and engagements this year. Take care. Bye-bye.